morning. It's another one of our first fives today. And I don't know about you, but I'm starting to find new normals. And I'm not sure I want them to be new normals or not. There are some things that have carried over through this pandemic that I started before that. And some of those kind of normal routines I'm trying to continue. Like I try to spend time in the scriptures every single day, or time in prayer, or time just resting in God's presence and trying to listen to his voice. And see, I really have come to believe that those everyday routines, those normal things, those things that we do in relationship with someone we love, that in those practices, God begins to speak. It's why we've been having this series called Spiritual Training, or Spring Training, about spiritual practices. We hope that you're thinking seriously about incorporating these into your everyday life, into your faith. And we've been talking this week about fasting, about how abstaining from food or other things really becomes this opportunity for us to hear God speak in a new way. See, I think sometimes we think God only speaks in these big dramatic ways. And maybe your story is similar to mine in your life. You remember some big moments in your life that happened at some large event, maybe for teenagers or when you were in college or even as an adult, these things have happened. But the truth is, I think the most powerful moments in my life have happened around kitchen tables and in conversation. So I love this story from Acts chapter 13. We see in that story, we see Barnabas and Saul called to become missionaries for God. They find their life's calling when they're going about their normal routine now that they've come to know Christ. And see, that's what I want us to recognize in this story, is that sometimes just your normal routine, in that, God may speak. Not because you're begging him to speak to you, but just because that's often when God does speak. And so I hear these words from Acts chapter 13, the first 3 verses. In the church at Antioch, there were prophets and teachers: Barnabas, Simeon called Niger, Lucius of Cyrene, and Manaen, who had been brought up with Herod the Tetrarch, and Saul. While they were worshiping the Lord and fasting, the Holy Spirit said, "Set apart for me Barnabas and Saul for the work to which I have called them." So after they had fasted and prayed, they placed their hands on them and sent them off. So did you catch that? While they were worshiping and fasting, the Spirit spoke. And then they continued to fast and prayed, and then they placed their hands on Barnabas and Saul and sent them off because they knew God had called them. See, they were going about their normal routine of worshiping God, of spending time with him, of fasting so that we can find ourselves longing after him and recognizing there's something that we separate ourselves out, and we recognize that if we're not careful, what we consume can consume us. And they had backed away from that. They desired not to live into that space. And so here's the challenge for you and I during these days. Let's find ourselves drawn to God's love, to his hope, to his presence. Let's spend time in fasting and engaging in the spiritual disciplines. And what we'll find in that everyday kind of rhythm is not every time, but every once in a while, God will speak. His Spirit will speak into our spirit, and we'll begin to hear his voice. Or maybe we'll come to recognize God's calling in our own life, or even in the lives of someone else. And if you've ever been a part of those kind of moments, they really are just life-changing. And so here's my encouragement. Let's just keep doing these everyday rhythms, these everyday routines. Let's just spend each morning with God and make sure we're in conversation all throughout the day. And so if you're fasting today, know this: you can do it. And so we look forward to gathering for worship this Sunday morning at 10:30 online. And just know that right now we long to be together. And so may this be encouraging for you today. May God's grace and peace and love be with you.